and hear from them, hear their stories, but also hear about their challenges. So, and as we know, right now in the time of pandemic, this is probably the most topical event we could have had. And I'm very, very glad that we have this three phenomenal women with us today. One of them could not join in person, and Ella will talk about it a little bit later, but we have the other two speakers with us, and thank you so much for joining us for this online webinar. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the event moderator, Ella Tam. Ella is the head of the EU and competition practice in Cobalt, Estonia. She's heading healthcare practice and co-heading the energy. She's one of the most recognized professionals in Estonia in her practice areas. But also, very importantly, that she's the head of our healthcare committee at the chamber. So Ella, thank you so much for taking the lead on this discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you for the introduction and for the opportunity. And thank you for the speakers for the opportunity to moderate. So we have today the discussion of women in healthcare from front lines to top rung. And we have three speakers coming. First, we have a video, kind of invitation or video talk by Heidi Alasepp, who is the Deputy Secretary General for Health in Ministry of Social Affairs. And then we will have a discussion with Terje Petso, Member of Board at North Estonian Regional Hospital, and Katrina Laks, who is the CEO at Microvention. So let me first start off with a video message from Heidi Alasepp. Then we will have, I will introduce the speakers who will first say their personal testimonials, how has their career looked like, how they have got to these great leadership positions. And then we will have a discussion around the topic. We will also open the discussion for comments, questions. You can comment or question it with your own face somewhere after the first introductions. But you can also leave a message in the chat if you want this to be incorporated into that kind of moderated question. So I will do my best to address all of the questions that are coming from the chat. But if I'm not able to do that, then please go ahead and raise your hands, and you will be given an opportunity to talk as well. But now let's start with a video message from Heidi Alasepp. So let me just share this to you.
Dear all, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to be your guest speaker. I'm honored to have an opportunity to share my experiences that I have gained working in different leading positions during my career. I have studied medicine and completed residency in healthcare management in the University of Tartu. I have had great opportunity to take different leading roles in my life. I started my career as a leader at the National Healthcare Board as the head of emergency medicine department. I have also been the head of healthcare department at the Ministry of Social Affairs and the head of the medical rehabilitation clinic at East Tallinn Central Hospital. This year, I'm working as a Deputy Secretary General on Health at the Ministry of Social Affairs. My career as a leader in healthcare system has been a great journey filled with many difficult challenges that have given me a chance to develop both my personal and leadership skills. During last year, a lot has changed. Pandemic has put greater pressure and responsibility on the shoulders of leaders. More than ever, we as leaders have had the pressure to be very innovative, collaborative, and adaptive to change. It has been a great challenge to prioritize and address other important tasks alongside COVID-19. Pandemic has required heavy multitasking, and it has been a big challenge to find balance between work and personal life. But there's a lot we can learn from crises like the worldwide pandemic has been. I have learned that cooperation, good communication, and collaboration are the key elements. Returning to the topic of today's meeting, I would like to say that gender shouldn't be a factor in whether or not a person can be a great leader. Person leadership abilities depend on the individual's strengths, personality traits, and commitment. I think that we, women in leadership, should lead by example. We need to celebrate the women who have been trailblazers, and I believe that women should be more encouraged to take leadership roles. And finally, I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to attend your meeting today, but I wish you a successful and exciting afternoon, and I hope that we will get an opportunity to meet after we have conquered this pandemic. Take care and stay healthy.
Okay, thank you very much for Heidi. And we can go forward with the discussion. So next on, I would introduce our next speaker who has made it to the top rank. So Terje Beetso is the member of board at North Estonian Regional Hospital, who is the epicenter of our worries and happiness for all. We are very happy to have you on. But let us today discuss the career path and the personal lines, how you have got here. So maybe you can share with us what has been your career path, what roles you have had, and what kind of roles have advanced you to your leadership position. Tell us your story, Terje, please.
Thank you, Elo. Thank you very much, Amcham, for the invitation. And thank you very much for those who have joined the discussion here. What I can say clearly is that I have not had an intention to become a leader throughout my career. There have been many different steps in it. But when I was thinking, I can't really, I don't have just enough time to tell you my full CV. That's even not fair to other speakers. And I thought about 5 steps that I would like to highlight. First of all, the fact that I have never ever thought of any other job than a doctor. Maybe the reason for that is that my first 7 years I lived in the hospital. I lived in the hospital in its real meaning, because my mother was a doctor in a small countryside hospital where downstairs on the first floor there was the hospital with 16 beds, and upstairs that was an apartment for doctor. So I really lived in the hospital, and somehow the patients, nurses, all kind of medical papers and equipment was part of my grown up. So somehow I always knew that I will become a doctor. So after the graduation from the secondary school, that was the only thought in my head. Sometimes I'm thinking that it was rather limited options at that time. Maybe now I would have thought differently, but I can't be, that's probably not true. Then the second point that I would like to highlight was the time when I worked together with a good friend of mine in the, that time it was called Estonian Family Planning Association. I was there because of my profession and because of my experience teaching young people. Because during my doctorate studies, I was teaching in the nursing college in Tartu, and I had this experience of delivering the message or separating important things for less important things. For example, I learned during being a teacher that you should never give the negative example because people remember somehow the negative examples, and then afterwards they don't remember that was a negative. So they think that it was an example. Probably it's true. So always give the positive message or the right message, the correct one, so that people will remember that one. The third point, talking about this sexual and reproductive health, I realized how important is the partnership and how important it is to bring the right message to right people at the right time. Because we were working with children from the second year in the school, 8 years old, and up to students. And there's one interesting thing that I would like to share with you. It was a big surprise for me because I started to ask almost all students at different times the question, why do you think that people have children? And only the youngest ones said that it is because mom and dad love each other. Because later they all started to talk about some kind of demographic needs. And I was thinking, where did we lose love? At what age? The love is no longer important. Anyway, that was my lesson learned. Then the third point in my career was when I worked in pharma industry. I worked 7 years for a big pharma. It was Amcham at that time when I joined the pharma industry, and that later it merged with Glaxo Wellcome and became GlaxoSmithKline. And I was responsible for medical marketing in Baltic states. But that also taught me a lot from different aspects of marketing and sales. And since then, I can honestly say, whatever you do in healthcare, you cannot do it without pharma industry, whether you like it or not, because sometimes people don't like it. But I would say that our cooperation is the ground for success only. That's the way we can do it together. The fourth point in my career was when I was suddenly become a bureaucrat. Absolutely not planned. I didn't plan to become a bureaucrat, but life turned this way that I became an officer at the European Commission. And even in the beginning, when I went there for 3 years, in the end, I was there 15 years. First, I worked with the scientific committee assessing the risks of consumer products on health risks only. Then I was responsible for Tobacco Products Directive, and that was the excellent cooperation that we had with Canada. I'm sorry, not with United States, except with British American Tobacco, but but that was a very, very challenging time. And international cooperation at that time was my everyday work, basically, not only European Union, because that also involved the WHO and the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. And the final fifth point, when I came back to hospital, because that was an opportunity that I took. I applied I submitted my application for this vacancy that was announced as the member of the management board. And because it had these type of tasks such as research and innovation, education, the traineeship, international relations, I thought that that would be something that I have learned now for 15 years at the European level. I would like to bring it back home, and I would like to support this at this level where we actually provide the healthcare. And because I was last 5 years in the European Commission, I was the head of the policy sector on digital health. I still believe that that is the big opportunity for digitization in healthcare, and we really have to work towards that, because it is not the miracle, it is not some kind of panacea for all problems, but that is something that world is taking up everywhere else. Why should we lag behind in healthcare? So these are these 5 steps, and if you put them in line, then I would say that what's the link between all these 5? But somehow they all have led to another. There is something that I have learned in each and every of these positions that has been beneficial in my next step. And sometimes the tasks that I even didn't like so much have been suddenly useful for taking the next step. So I would say that perhaps my curiosity for new things, ability to take the risk, because moving to Brussels with the family and being responsible, that everybody should be happy there, including myself, that was that was a risk. And we took it together, and we make it work. And also my wish to see the bigger picture, this type of global view. I teach the medical students at the second year. I have the subject called global health, and I try to convey them the message that yes, you are studying to help a person, to help a patient, but there is always a broader picture. You are part of this big thing that is called global health, and I have the passion to both sides. I want to help a person, but I want to make the world a better place as well. So that's it. That's in short.
Thank you very much, Tere. I know that when we were preparing for this discussion, you also noted that you have had a number of times that you have applied for vacancies. So maybe you can actually share some tips on how to apply. What are the rules? How to become picked? Are there any rules? Maybe some tips?
Well, I have 2 tips for sure. 2 tips for sure. First is the preparatory work. You really have to prepare yourself about the position that you apply and the employer that you are talking to. You have to know this atmosphere, the environment, and your tasks, and what has happened before. I think that if you go unprepared, you just undermine all your good qualities, because they don't believe that you truly want this position. And that's actually the second point. Those who interview you, or already in this, usually there is this type of motivation letter that you have to also submit. You have to demonstrate that you really want this job. Not that if you don't get this job, you will die. No, that's the extreme. But in principle, they have to understand that you are passionate about this. And that your passion is real. It's not exaggerated. It's not some kind of extreme, but it's real. And you have to also, I think, demonstrate a bit of sense of humor in it. You can't be too serious. Depends, of course, on the audience. Maybe the audience is so serious that you have to be serious. But in principle, I think that if there is some kind of possibility that you can demonstrate that you are a human being and you have a good sense of humor, as well. Good sense of humor. I mean, you know, you cannot make jokes about religion or disease or whatever. You can always make jokes about yourselves, but prepare a joke about yourselves, and that usually works. That usually works. And I think that this type of things as your level of literacy, that you have read books, you know what is in the agenda, you can recognize from words or names what they are talking about, and you can immediately go on with it. I think that is that's a successful thing. I just give you an example. I also told Elo that the example when I applied for this fellowship in United States, because in the commission there is this type of program that the commission officials at a certain grade, not everybody, but at a certain grade, can apply for the fellowship. And this fellowship was established initially with the universities in the United States, but it has been extended later also to Singapore and Australia and Brazil and some other countries. And it has been like double tasked fellowship, because in one hand, we have always been helping the universities, sharing our experience and knowledge about European Union in United States. And at the same time, we have our own little research objectives, what to analyze. For example, I was looking for these obstacles that hinder uptake of digital health in United States and in Europe. If we have time, I can tell you. It's very short outcome of that, my little research. But when I did an application for it, because it was fully paid from the Commission, it was a very expensive program. So the Commission only sent annually maximum 10 people to this type of fellowship. And honestly, I have to say that there was a lot of colleagues who were surprised that I was successful, because usually it was the fellowship for quite high management position people who worked either in the cabinets or at the director level. But I think that what worked well, and that I think could be a trick for this type of applications, which was given for me by my director general at that time. And he said that he looked through my papers because he had to sign them, and he gave me a recommendation. If you would write everywhere behind your name, wherever is your name in this application form, just put MD, medical doctor, behind, because that is something for these jury members that they are not used to. Because in the commission, usually we had lawyers or economists. That was the majority. 90% lawyers and economists, and doctors were a very rare species. So he said that highlight something in you that nobody else has. And maybe that was the trick. I don't know, but it worked. So what I would recommend, as I said, is if you would find something which is very special in you. I was also in the traineeship jury in the commission, because every year there is this traineeship announced where people can apply for 6 months traineeship in the commission. And we distributed the points for each and every event what they had marked in their CV. And more interesting facts about your life you had, the more points you got. So sometimes people, for example, got points because they have been, there was a guy who was the guardian in Arctics for polar bears to prevent them entering the town. And that was something also, oh, that's how can it be useful for the European Commission? But he got the point for that. So he was advanced in this list of applicants.
Well, that's these are great stories that you are telling us, and I'm sure that we can all learn from it, and with a good sense of humor, as you have noted. Thank you, Terje, for your thoughts for the start. Let's go forward, because we have another very interesting and quite different story to hear. So Katrina, tell us your story. You are the CEO of a startup, Microvention. How did you become a CEO, and what brought you here?
Thank you, Elo, and thank you, Amcham, for asking me to speak today. I heard Terje before, just now, and I was thinking, how did I become here? And the start of my story is quite similar. I was raised up in a hospital also, but the second part is different. In the end of high school, I chose differently. I had the opportunity to choose genetic engineering, and I chose that way. So I chose the way to become a scientist. And I'm still walking that way a bit also, and doing my PhD studies on female reproductive medicine, and finding out why some women get children and why some don't. And it's really interesting on biochemical level. But Microvention was born from my own and Estonian headache specialists' own needs. Our startup is need-driven, and I became the CEO of Microvention because I think I'm the most suitable founder for that position at the moment. I think that one day I will step back and we will find somebody who's maybe more suitable when we're going on global level, but let's see. I have a drive to do that also at the moment. As said, Microvention was born need-driven from my own needs. I have had migraine for more than 16 years, and we have people similar to me, over 200,000 in Estonia. Over 500,000 people in Estonia know what headache is. So almost every third people walking towards you on the street knows what a headache is. It's not always migraine, but migraine is really frequent also. And only 1 to 4% of these people get evidence-based medicine in headache clinics. And in Estonia, we have only 2, one in Tallinn, in East Tallinn Central Hospital, and one in Tartu University Hospital. So we have the goal to help more people here in Estonia, but of course globally also. And we see US as a market for our solution, as they have a lot of patients and they have a lot of existing headache clinics who we can help with our solution. So my story has been shorter on CEO wise, only 1.5 years, and our company has grown me, and I think Estonian digital healthcare ecosystem has also grown me a lot, and I also believe that we have a lot to do and a lot has to be done on digitizing the healthcare. There are a lot of opportunities. We are just starting with migraine and headache treatment. How to become a CEO if you have been a scientist for years might it might be frightening, and it might be a different career goal, or it might sound as a pivot. Pivot is a really popular word in startup world, but actually I think that being in science and experimenting and researching is really important in healthcare. Also, the regulatory paths that are important in healthcare solutions. I think that my previous work and studying is very much supporting my current goals as driving my prevention to next level. Also, the fact that we are a science-driven company and our solution is evidence-based. We have a lot of scientists in our company. From this autumn, 2 PhD students also started. So we highly value the scientific component in our startup. In healthcare field, I really love the point that Terje also brought out. Digitalization has to also come. In fintech, it seems so normal. In educational technology, it's also coming, but in healthcare, people are kind of afraid of it. And now I see that that maybe we're just about on the right time, and maybe COVID has made a right situation for healthcare digitalization also, and not only remote doctor's appointments, but for remote care and remote monitoring of patients also. And a lot has to be done, but we see that it will be the next step, and as the regulations in EU and in US are also now fit, we can do a lot. So if you have any questions, please do ask.
Yeah, fascinating story from your own needs to doing something. So it's like you are the person saying you want something done, you've got to do it yourself. Sounds like that. Okay, but thank you very much for your story. I think we can move on to discuss now how to advance women to the leadership positions, because we have seen that there are a number of reports out there. There is, for instance, McKinsey, who is, it has been named from the front lines to the top rung. And this paper indeed showed that in healthcare, there are more women on managerial positions when you are comparing to many other sectors. So healthcare sector is doing well. But when you are looking at the most top positions, C positions, then you still see that there is a gap, which is again smaller than in other sectors, but it is still there. And it's interesting also, maybe to tie it together. In the first address, Heidi Alasepp noted that you need to lead by example. Maybe you can also resonate on this one and to introduce what are your thoughts, what the women could do themselves to get to the higher positions. Is there any tips that you can share? And I see also that Jana Holmar has raised a hand. So perhaps we can hear first your thoughts, and then Jana next going on. Katrina,
well, if I may start. In this McKinsey report, the recommendations in the end, I'm strongly behind the last one, which is encourage women. And that is something that is certainly the point here, because sometimes women are too shy or are not so self-confident about their ability to get the position. So just to not be disappointed they don't apply, for example. It could be. Sometimes they believe that that position requires 24/7 being on call, which is true, but to some extent. I think that if you plan your career, then you should keep in mind that if you plan it, and if you also are a family-oriented person, and I think that they are quite capable of being in the same person. That both are important, family and job. I don't think that they have to be one or another. I am very blessed, I would say, because I had my, at the time when I started to have the leadership positions, my children were already big enough to take care of themselves. Because and at the time when I was, for example, the medical marketing manager for Baltic States in GSK, then I had a very good backup because that was my parents who also were a support group. So but at the time they were small kids. I was at home with them. So I never have this kind of nervous situation that I don't know where and with whom and what is with my children while I am doing the career. I have not had that situation. When they were small, I was with them. When they were in between, then I knew that there is a good backup for me. And when I really started to lead something or manage somebody else, then they were already grown-ups. So I think there is you don't have to become the president of everything at the age of 28. It's then what will you be when you are 35? I think there is our lifetime, you know, this 65 is new 40. So yeah, exactly. New 65 is old 40, because we are now, the WHO made this survey worldwide asking people, how do you group yourself in the age group? And people up to 63 said they are young people. That is what we are. And I think that women should also take this as an opportunity at every age, at every stage, just to be encouraged. That I would strongly support. And learn. Open your eyes, read books, read articles, talk to people. That makes you, and you want it. You just have to be happy about that.
I totally agree with Terje. Encouraging other women is our job also, to by example and by our words and thoughts also. And I call my reinvention my third kid, born at my 35th birthday, basically when I was 35. So I think that was the right time. I was old enough and I had experienced enough also when I started it. And one thought maybe to take from here at home message, the only failure that you can make is when you don't start, or when you don't try, or don't go somewhere. When you try or do or start something, it's already a success.
Thank you, Katrina. Jana, would you want to contribute to our discussion, or you have a question? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for these inspiring talks. I just want to add one very nice thought from one older professor, female professor from one engineering conference, when woman in engineering panel was, and there was also a question about how women can proceed in their career, and from where should they start, and so on. And this professor said that women, as a first step in their career, should choose wisely their husbands. So maybe that is my idea. What I also would like to spread, because it is very important to have nice backup from home, not maybe only to make food or participate family life, but also support that you can do it, you are good enough, you are smart enough, and so on. So it is very important to have your family behind you. That was my thought. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is all true. And I think it is true for anybody, women or men, everybody alike, to have the support of your family when going forward with your dreams and passions. Let me just also ask one perhaps tool when we are talking about leadership positions. One thing always is necessary: planning. Time planning. Maybe you have some good hints or thoughts on how to plan time. I know, Katrina, I was just amazed at how we agreed on our own call to prepare for this meeting. So maybe you have good tips, and Terje, of course, as well. How can we give some good tips for people?
I think my planning abilities are also raised from a lot from my previous career as a scientist, or my career as a scientist, because there when you do wet lab experiments, you have to plan a lot before you start something. In business, I see that calendar is the basis of everything. So I use a lot of tools and widgets to make my life easier. Elo talked about Calendly, the booking tool for my calendar. It has open spaces for meetings with me. We use, as we are a team that started on 13th of March 2020, in the beginning of pandemic. So we have basically worked all the time using e-solutions, using Zoom, using Google Meet, using Google Drive for documents, and our I think that we can work this way really efficiently. And I think a lot of you use, but I see Slack, which is one of the data and message channels that you can use, a really good tool for teams, small or large size, and Instagram for planning big things. And no paper.
This is all very suitable for an IT startup. Terje, you must have a bit different.
No, but I believe that there is a great difference with the private sector, because the private sector, you are personally responsible for the deliverables. And this is your day and night, and your third child, and all these responsibilities that come with it. I think it is very, there is a bit of different feeling in it, but also a bit of different responsibility, because if you fail, it is you who fails. While when you work in the public sector, then you are responsible for many other people who depend on you, and the failure is much more disastrous, in at least how I feel it. But what I want to say is that that is a bit similar to what I learned in the university, being a medical student, because one of the professors said that first 2 years you serve your matrikel, which is this book that keeps your exams and all the test results. That at that time, when I was a student, that was a previous century, we didn't have any digital books for that. It was all in one book. And that was saying that first 2 years you serve this little book, and next 4 years this little book serves you. Because the professor who is not sure about your answers will look how well did you do it before. And if that was all well, then that was it was just bad day for you. And he or she was eager to give you the better mark just because the book was demonstrating that you are a good student. I think that is something similar in the office, that if you are able to demonstrate that you are a reliable, the duty-oriented person, then it doesn't matter that you work from 8 to 4 and you are this kind of presenteeism. That you maybe today leave earlier, but they know that tomorrow you will deliver. And that is something that you only generate trust in what you are in time. And you have to put the effort into it in the beginning. That's true. In the new environment, you also don't know this environment. You have to demonstrate your capability to many people to create this atmosphere that they trust you. But at the same time, you have to learn all your colleagues. Can you trust them? And that is where this kind of behavioral example comes, that if I demonstrate that I am responsible and I am delivering, then you are this type of leadership. It's not the management, then it's leadership. That you engage them in the same values, and you all agree that that's the way we do things. And then later it supports you because they do things and you don't have to do everything and check that this kind of micromanagement. You don't have to do it. And that saves a lot of time also for you as the manager, that you can trust your team and your people and you all work to the same objectives. I think it takes time to learn. If you are young, you can easily get to the burnout because you are not yet there with your position, as well as you don't know where all other people are and how to achieve their common goals. And where are these common goals?
Yeah, well, how wonderful. I can see that Kadri has raised the hand, so it would be really great to get her thoughts in as well. But I just love this area that I'm asking about time planning, and you are talking about trust, which makes all the perfect sense, that once you have established that trust, you can also be more relaxed about planning because you have the kind of control of how to do. But Kadri, please go ahead, join us.
Yeah, thank you. I indeed enjoy the discussion. I would like to know more about how you deal with failure. Of course, we all know that failure is learning always. But nevertheless, if you apply somewhere and you are not selected, if you have the best idea ever from the world and you are very passionate about it, but the team is not selecting your idea, so how you personally deal with the failure?
So maybe I'll start. I can maybe relate only on that level that we have applied on several projects on EU level and Estonian level. And maybe I relate or I analyze this also as a scientist, because when you know that the acceptance level to certain project is 10%, you analyze all the competitors and you get the knowledge that if you are in the 10% or you are not. In past year we wrote 6 projects and we got 3. So our our level of getting the projects is pretty good, 50%. But it's not always like that, and it depends of the project, and if it's European project, it's local, where the money comes from, what's the full acceptance level, is it 10%, is it 40%, is it easier to get or harder to get? I can't relate on applying to some job, unfortunately, because I was chosen to be the CEO from the founder round of our company.
Terje, any thoughts to add?
Well, I have applied for at least 4 positions or 5, and only one I didn't get. And I think that was a point, because the next option for me was to apply for the position I have now. And I'm very happy that I didn't got the previous one. I think it was that was the master plan for me. But what I want to say is that if I have always been in all these competitions, I've been successful, but nevertheless, I have always thought that I will not lose because I was bad. There was just somebody who fitted this job better. Simple as that. It's nothing to do with me being bad. It just was other expectations, or somebody just was better than me. That's the fact. And if it is about the project, then I think that is either not well prepared, you can do better, or it was the wrong target. European projects very often, the typical thing that you don't meet tasks. But Katrina, you are very exceptional. 50% of success. That's we have to come to you and learn. How do you do it? Because I think that is exactly a possibility to learn, to do it better. And if some people, what I have seen, have come to the job interview, for example, absolutely unprepared, then that's a ground for failure. They just were not prepared. But otherwise, I would say that, it's there is no such thing as luck in this type of competition. It's not good or bad luck. There are other elements that matter. And if you happen to be in chemistry and in your vision and in your values, you match the team, then only reason for failure is that somebody did it better than you. And that is something that you do not have to be sorry about. I got so excited that my camera disappeared almost from the screen.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or thoughts or discussions? I think we should start wrapping it up in a minute. So I will just use also 2 minutes or so to make some conclusions of the discussions that I had. But I see Terje.
I raised my hand. I can't find it here. I just wanted to say that I missed one very important thing in this time planning, and that's the prioritization. You have to prioritize your tasks, otherwise you can't manage. You can't do, I don't believe in multiple tasking at the same time. I think that you can be successful if you focus on one thing. For example, if I talk to my family, I talk to my family. What I can do, I can drive a car at the same time when I talk to my sister who lives in Basel. But otherwise, I don't believe in reading a book and talking to my child, for example, or preparing a document and at the same time being on a phone with a colleague. No, that doesn't work. You have to be focused, but being focused means you have to prioritize. And that is first most important thing.
Very good point. Katrina, please go ahead.
Just to add up to Terje and maybe to the calendar talk also, Don't let your calendar be too full of meetings, because then you don't have time to do things for reading documents, signing documents, talking to your family. You're overwhelmed with the calendar. Put time for working also there, and setting goals and focusing on the goals. And if you have a team behind you, if you're not focusing and setting the goals only for yourself, see that your team know the goal that you're having, that your company has the same goal, or your department has the same goal, and you're all aware of the goal, that people are not running in different directions.
Well, wonderful thoughts. Let me just wrap up this. I just put down some key words that I heard from this conversation, what it is to remember from this conversation. And the key words that I put down, what could be leading to the leadership and success, is be a teacher, be curious, be ready to take risks, see a big picture, have a sense of humor, read a book, be literate, do research, do the science, be courageous, build trust, and put the effort in first, then the fruits will come. So these are some of the keywords that we heard. So thank you very much, Terje and Katrina. Thank you also to Heidi for those engaging stories and inspiration. Thank you for all participants for listening and also active engagement. Kadri, Jana, thank you so much for your thoughts and comments. We hope this discussion has given you food for thought and inspiration. But just before we leave, since we have Terje and Katrina and many of the healthcare sector here, let us also take the opportunity to thank all of those who are on the front lines today. Let us please pass on our sincere admiration and thankfulness for all the line workers right now. So let us end with this thank you note, and I wish you all to stay safe, be happy, and just pursue your dreams. Thank you all.
And thank you, Ella, for leading this discussion today. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll continue with our Women in Leadership events and also our healthcare committee work very soon. We have upcoming meetings, but for right now, wishing you a great afternoon and a great weekend ahead, and please stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.